Hello, wonderful people. You ready to save more money? Let's do this. I'm going to start off with the main point because it's my presentation, and that's how I wish a lot of other presentations were. Then we'll talk about some foundational attitudes and mindsets that can really help you save more money, just lenses through which to view the world. Talk about designing your life because remember, money is not about money. It's about your life and using that money as a tool to support what you want in life. So we need to get clear on what you actually want. We'll address some of the common stories we tell ourselves about why we don't save. And I'll throw in a little bit for people who don't have a regular salary coming in from someone else. And at the end, if you get through this whole thing, I would love to hear any comments or questions you might have. My goal is to make this as impactful as possible, help people save more, allow them to have the impact they want to have. So I would love to hear from you about whether I've succeeded or not in that and how I could do better. Let's jump into it. The main point. Okay. The problem as I see it is that we're experiencing stress, which leads to suffering and ultimately us having less impact than we could have and than we want to have on the world. A potential solution would be to make saving money fun, which would cause us to save more, be happier, and help the world and just have a bigger impact, whatever that impact is for us, our unique impact. So, how are we going to make saving fun? Well, normally we think of saving and spending as two different things. Saving is not that fun, spending is super fun. I want to offer a different perspective through which to view it. What if you think about saving is spending in the future? Which is true, It sounds a little weird at first, but it's actually true. When you're saving, you're still going to spend that money. It's just a little bit later. So you're still going to get all the joy, and I would argue more joy, depending on what you're saving for, more satisfaction, more fulfillment, more of all that good stuff if you save at least some portion and then you can use it intentionally in the future. Awesome. That's the main point. But there's a lot more, so stick around. Real quick, why I'm doing this, from about that age, 6 or 7 or 8, I've had an interest in personal finance, but I didn't really think I was going to use that in my career or know how that was going to tie into my life until about 2017. I had been atheist and totally just rejected the religion that I was born into and raised in. And then I realized, oh, there is this love inside of us, and we can spread that to other people and throughout the world. And instantly, as soon as I realized that, I knew that I wanted to integrate that with my personal finance stuff and to use money as a tool to support those higher values of love and peace and whatever your values are. You can use money as a tool to support those. So I started a website, lovepeacemoney.com, in 2018, and still wasn't quite sure the exact form that it was going to take, but I knew the mission was to spread love and peace throughout the world by using money more intentionally, and to especially work with people who have that mission of spreading love and peace in whatever way you want to do that. Everyone has their own unique way of doing that. I also love nature and live music and having fun. This is with some friends in the Eastern Sierra in California. All right, so that was the main point, that saving is spending, just in the future. Let's get into these foundational attitudes and mindsets that can really affect our behavior. So, emotions. Just be real with you. Emotions are probably going to come up during any sort of introspective money work. And it may not be joy at first, at least. You might experience things more along the lines of this. And I would just invite you to view any sort of unpleasant emotions, really all emotions, as teachers, to accept them, honor them, and get curious about what belief they're showing you, maybe what experiences led to that belief, and to not try to suppress emotions. I've tried that, doesn't work. And to not attach to the positive emotions either, but just accept them, learn from them, use them as a tool for self-awareness. And understand that money is an extremely emotional topic for almost everyone. So do not feel like you're weird for getting emotional around money. This is a big one. I'll be happy when tying your happiness to a future goal. It doesn't work out that well, I'd say, in my experience, and for most people, even when they get that goal that they thought would make them happy, it doesn't last. So we're talking about saving. Don't tie your happiness to a savings goal. Happiness only happens in the present moment, along with everything else. So you can have the savings goal, that's great. We can want to get what we want, that's fine. I would just encourage you to not tie your happiness to that, or else you'll always be chasing the next thing. You'll never really be satisfied until you are accepting the present moment. Talked about this a little bit earlier. Another attitude is just that you don't actually want money. No one does. We want what money can get us, or what we think money can get us. So I would encourage you to get clear about what you really do want in life. And we'll talk more about this later. But just get clear about what you want, then you can use money as a tool to support that. It can also make saving fun because it's not about the money. It's about things that are actually important to you. And lastly, for now, approach all this, and this is just, great in life in general. Self-love and acceptance. You're doing the best you can. Mistakes are learning opportunities. Forgive yourself and just accept the present. You can't change the past, but you can learn from it, and you can choose to act differently the next time the opportunity rolls around. Especially with saving. Don't beat yourself up. Whatever your saving has been in the past, whether maybe it's not as much as you may have liked, it's what it is. You're here. You can choose to act now, but control what you can control, and don't beat yourself up for maybe not saving as much as you might have liked to. It's all good. We're going to get through this. It starts in the present. All right, designing your life. Let's first take a moment and just be grateful that we can even talk about this. Because for most of human history, this is a luxury that almost no one has had. Life was about survival, maybe raising a family, but this idea of creating the life you want and having the impact you want and doing fun stuff you want was not realistic for the vast majority. So we're in an incredible time. Let's be grateful that we can have the luxury of doing this, and let's try to use that luxury for a higher purpose. The main thing is getting clear on what you actually want. That way, money can be a tool in service to that, and we're not just serving money or chasing after money, but doing it with some intention. So we can get clear on what we want our day-to-day life to look like, how we want to have fun, what do we want to do for fun, and also what impact we want to have and how we want to serve our community, our family, ourselves, and the world. So I'd encourage you, if you feel called, pause the video and think about those 3 areas: day-to-day, fun, impact. What do you want? All right, I also offer you the opportunity to rethink the traditional idea of retirement. Instead of asking, when can I retire, or how much do I need to retire, you could ask yourself, what is the right balance between work, play, and service or helping? If those are even separate things. If those are all the same thing for you, that's fantastic. But let's just think about balancing those as opposed to what I think is sort of an antiquated idea that might be right for some people. Well, let's just check it out. This is the traditional retirement. It's kind of treated as a one size fits all, but really it's not. For the people that want to do that, that's great. Where you're just working and then there's just a one day you're working full time and the next you are not working at all. If you want to do that, that's great. But recognize that there's other options as well. And also notice I include the skull down here, um, just to remind us that our time, at least in this lifetime, is finite. And remembering that we're going to die and meditating on that can help us seize the day and also can help us recognize what are we doing just to avoid the thought of death, or where, in what ways are we running from death or that idea. um, Sort of start to come to peace with that. It's not a morbid thing, it's a thing to enjoy life more. Here are some other options instead of that traditional retirement. You could gradually wind down your work, maybe just work on the things that you care about more. Mini retirements or sabbaticals um, can sort of have you feel more refreshed and give you a new perspective and more energized to get back to work and creation and impact. This idea is from Tim Ferriss in his book, 4 Hour Work Week. There's also this idea of being semi-retired, where once again, like winding down, you can just do the work that you care most about and cut out the other stuff. And this is just for a chuckle. Somebody just keeps increasing their work until they die. If that's you, that is awesome, especially if it's having a positive impact on the world. You go for it. I would encourage you to draw out these axes, but then draw whatever line you want, or maybe a few different ones, for the level of work you want to do and how that's going to change as you age and approach death. You can also draw lines for fun and helping or service or impact if you feel called to. But I would really encourage you to pause this video and draw at least a line for work, if not ones for fun and service as well. All right, now that you've done that, what's the point? You're just drawing these lines. How does that relate to your life? A line on paper is not your life. So why are we even doing this? Well, let me just read you a short passage from Alice in Wonderland. Alice asked the cat, "Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?" And the Cheshire Cat says, "That depends a good deal on where you want to get to." "I don't much care where." "Then it doesn't much matter which way you go." And she says, "So long as I get somewhere." "Oh, you're sure to do that if you only walk long enough." The point is, let's get clear on where you want to get to and viewing your life as a whole and not just what's right in front of you. So viewing the totality of your life and also viewing your life as part of this greater whole that we're all involved in. And it's not, remember, it's not saying, where do you want to get so then you can be happy? Because the happiness starts now. So even though life doesn't necessarily go according to plan, I believe it's still useful to plan and at least set those intentions, and as your preferences and your idea of your purpose changes, you just update the plan. It can give you direction without tying you down. So that's the point of drawing those lines. That was just a little taste of designing your life. Let's look at the stories we tell ourselves about why we don't save. Because if we can address some of these, maybe that's all we need to start saving more. I would guess that this is probably the main one for most people, is just based on their current situation, they think it's impossible. And you might be right. You totally might be right, but let's just see what the reality is. And there's a quote I love: "Facing facts is always empowering. from Eckhart Tolle. Facing facts is always empowering. You know, if our actions are based on a non reality, they're not going to be as effective compared to acting from the true present. Marvin Gaye, what's going on? That's what we're going to do. We're going to look at what's going on to see if it really is impossible for you or if there's an opportunity. I encourage you to draw out this little chart with what's coming in on the left and what's going out on the right. So what's coming in, estimate your monthly income, use a conservative or low estimate, just estimate. It does not have to take a long time. Go ahead and pause the video if you need to. And on the right, just the essential spending we'll start with. We can get into the stuff that you choose to spend on later. Let's just start with the essentials. And one thing to make saving more fun is if you're doing any sort of conscious spending plan like this, or just looking at your spending, using sort of fun category names. You don't have to call it food, rent, gas, phone bill. You can sort of use more fun names and just names that resonate with you. Like nourishment, you could say like nutritious food, shelter, or I love the term sanctuary instead of rent. Slow teleportation. That's what I'm using instead of transportation, instead of cars or public transport. Magic rectangle, that's what my uncle calls our devices. And you can see other examples there. So start with the essentials. Go ahead and do that now. All right, remember, we're just estimating. It doesn't have to be exact. We just want to get a first idea. You probably have one of three results. Either what's coming in is more than what's going out, in which case you can save. It's a choice. If you choose not to, that's fine, but acknowledge that it's a choice. Or what's coming in is exactly the same as what's going out, or maybe it's less than what's going out. In those cases, if you want to start saving, then there's going to be some changes you might have the opportunity to make. It might look like this or feel like this when you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to start to save? But I would encourage you to view it more like this. You've got two levers that you can push or pull. Income and spending. And it's up to us to choose how we want to push and pull those. The little catch is it's not necessarily as easy as just pushing a lever to increase your income or to decrease your spending. There could be some real work that goes into that. I'm not discounting that at all. But as a starting place, you can think, okay, do I want to decrease my spending or do I want to increase my income or some combination of those two? Let's just spend a little bit of time thinking about how we can push and pull these levers. So for income, if you're wanting to make more income instead of choosing to cut spending, that's great. It's pretty individualized in terms of how you can best make more income. That really depends on your situation. It might be asking for a raise or getting a raise. It might be getting a new job. It might be doing freelance work or some sort of side gig or some other creative avenue. But the best answer for you on that is pretty individualized to your situation and what opportunities you have. In terms of cutting down spending, if that's how you would like to start to save more, I would say there's two main approaches to this. The one that I like, at least to start, and you can do the second one later, but to start, just look at your biggest expenses every month. And they're probably your sort of fixed expenses, your shelter and maybe food and transportation, your car, maybe debt payments. Look at your biggest expenses every month and start to think about if there's ways to maybe reduce those. Depending on your situation, maybe getting a roommate, or frankly, maybe a cheaper car, or just things that you can do where it's a one time thing that has a big effect on your monthly expenses. Um, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but that's one avenue is to look at your biggest expenses and then start to address those. The other option is to look at all of your expenses, big and small, and just for each one sort of evaluate, is this in alignment with my goals? Is this exactly what I want this money to be used for? Or would I rather have it be saved for a more important goal for me? So I think this is super powerful and it's a great thing for everyone to do, but it is more work than just choosing one or two big things and making some changes. Um, so you would first have to get clear on what you're spending. And there's online ways to do that. There's websites like Mint where you connect your bank account and it will show you all of your transactions and start to categorize them. You can also just do it by hand. There's a service called Tiller that does it. Um, so you would see what you're spending every month and then compare that to your sort of ideal conscious spending plan, which you can draw up at the same time or before or after. But just what do I actually want to spend on, and make sure to include saving in that conscious spending plan. Then, when you have your ideal conscious spending plan and your reality, then comes the fun part of looking at where there are differences and choosing how you want to adjust them. Say that you want to spend $100 on restaurants each month, and the reality is you're spending 200. You have some choices. You could either next month only spend 100, or you could compromise and say, I'm going to adjust my plan, and maybe let's say 150 a month feels better to me. It's a process, not an event. It's an evolving, the conscious spending plan evolves. It's not a one-time thing that you're then bound to. It's about you and your life and what's important to you, and you will learn a ton doing that. So just really quickly, those are the two main ways to start to reduce spending, and a little bit of general stuff about increasing income. All right, let's keep moving. Another reason why we don't save is for emotional reasons or subconscious beliefs. This resonated with me that our experiences lead to our beliefs, which then shape our actions. So I want to make this concrete with regards to saving. Let's say you had an experience where you saw your parents saving, but then they were not enjoying life and they were just denying themselves in the present and not happy. As a child, if you saw that, you might think and form the subconscious belief that if I save, I won't be happy, or I need to spend money to be happy. That might happen. And that belief might lead to the action of not saving. So, to transform beliefs, I love this three-part model of awareness, then understanding, and transformation. When you become aware of an emotional aversion to saving, you can seek to understand where it came from. And when you understand and appreciate it, you can choose to recognize the ways in which it's not serving you and start to release it. So, becoming aware of these emotional reactions and reasons not to save, getting to the root of maybe what experience or what belief are they revealing to me, and then starting to thank those, appreciate those, and release them if they're not serving you. All right, let's look at another reason why we tell ourselves we don't save. We just think we'll save more later. And once again, you might. You totally might. So let's look at some examples of what we can do as our income increases. Because I think usually this is phrased as, oh, I'll make more later, so I'll save more later, which you totally can. All right. This is from today to when you stop working, your income, most people's income generally increases because they're getting more skills and more experience. So I think it's realistic to assume your income will increase somewhat. Adjust this for your own personal situation. What are some choices we have about what our spending does as our income increases? What can we do with our spending? Well, one option is to have the spending increase exactly with the income. This is called lifestyle creep because it's your lifestyle or your spending is creeping up as your income creeps up. And I would say this is kind of the default for humans. Many Americans are in the situation at all income levels. There's people who are making six figures and they're spending as much as they're making, or they're maybe even spending more than they're making. So this is not about what your income is. It's just about spending relative to income. The glasses, the cool glasses guys there show you it's fun when you're spending a lot, but by the time you want to finally stop working and you don't have anything saved, yikes, that can be scary. So we're going to try to avoid that and sort of change that. Here's another option. Maybe you still increase your spending, which is fun and feels good, but just your income increases faster. So you do save some. That's one option. That's great. Another thing you can do is wait till you get to a certain income level and then just cap your spending there and say, this is the lifestyle I want, and I'll just keep it there, and any extra income I earn above this, I'll just save. That's awesome. Or you could sort of do a laddered or kind of a stair step approach where as you reach certain income levels, you then increase your lifestyle. Awesome. Another reason why we don't save. We view it as greedy or wrong or immoral or something like that. And this is coming from a great place. It's coming from a loving place where you probably see people less fortunate and that are hurting and suffering and hungry. You think, how can I possibly justify saving if there are these people who are suffering right now? I would offer a few thoughts on this. One is that you need money to survive. And so if you martyr yourself and you don't survive, that's not really helping as much as you could be. You want to put your own oxygen mask on first. Then the more secure you are, the more ways that you can help others and the less stress you have. So say you have this heart and you want to serve the world. I would say that the more savings you have, then the more time and energy you have to use for the benefit of others. So if your goal is to have that impact, the more financially secure you are, the more you can have that impact. And also, just a little aside, if you aren't saving because of this reason, are you really using every extra penny to help others? Or are you maybe just spending on some personal pleasures? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I'm just saying, if you're not doing saving because you want to help others, but then you're spending on stuff for yourself, maybe there's an opportunity for introspection there. Alrighty, the last reason, maybe we think we don't need to save. And once again, this might be true in your situation. It would depend on your situation, but a couple questions to ask yourself if you think this. Do you want to have to work until you die? Not do you want to work until you die, because you might say, yeah, I love what I do. It's do you want to have to work until you die? Saving gives you the choice to keep working or not, and the choice of what to work on. Another question you can ask yourself is, what options do I want to provide for my kids? The more saving you have, the more options you can provide for them. Another thing to consider is flexibility and options that saving will give you in the short term. I'm just going to really quickly list a few scenarios. If you answer yes to any of these questions, you may not need to save, although it will still give you flexibility. If your children or your family will support you when you stop working, you may not need to save. Or if you have a pension, although just be aware it's not, those are never 100% guaranteed. So just be careful with that. If you have an inheritance or a trust fund, you may not need to save, but just recognize that someone else saved for you. So be grateful to them. Or if there's a future expansion of the safety net or a guaranteed income, you may not need to save, and that would be really cool. But let's maybe not bet on that. And if that happens, then we can adjust, but let's not put all our eggs in that basket. That's just my suggestion. Or if you have some other arrangement that will provide for your needs without you earning income, you may not need to save. So if you answered yes to any of those, then hats off to you. That's fantastic. Most of us will still need to save, at least Americans. Alrighty, let's look at some specific items that can help people who don't necessarily have just a steady salary coming in every week. In the short term, one of the really powerful things we can do with saving is deal with variations in income. So without saving, it would look like this, where you're spending exactly what your income is. Here's the thing. You're having fun when the income is high, but as the income falls and you have to cut back on your spending, that's hard. That's hard for anyone. But humans really do not like to decrease their lifestyle. So I would say just because your income is a roller coaster doesn't mean your emotions need to be. There's another way though. We don't have to do it like this. What if we did something like this, where the spending can be flat or maybe even increasing a little bit? But the key is you're saving that amount. You're basically chopping off the peak of the income and using it to fill in a valley later. So this is a very concrete example of how saving really is just spending in the future. This is on a short-term scale. It also applies long-term. You might, when you're spending less than you're making, you might be thinking, oh man, I could be, spending so much more than what I am. Is this really, do I really need to do this? But if your income then falls, you will be very glad you had those short-term savings. So this is basically illustrating what's called an emergency fund. You could call it a flexibility fund. And this is a personal finance rule of thumb. And I would say it applies even more to people with variable income. It's even more important. So that's one little tip for freelancers and self-employed business owners. That's for the short term. Let's look at the long term for business owners. The biggest difference for long-term savings between someone at a normal salary job and a freelancer or business owner is that the freelancer or business owner has the opportunity to reinvest into their business. And that can take a lot of different forms, increasing your skills as a freelancer or marketing or whatever is specific to your business. But you might decide that your business is your biggest asset and you might choose to invest some money that you could just do sort of normal investing stuff with and instead pump that back into the business. Obviously, this is not any financial advice. This is just educational about some general concepts. The main concept to be aware of here is the connection between risk and reward. So almost always there's a pretty close connection between risk and reward. And reinvesting into your business would be considered more risky because it's just one business that could fail or not be as successful as the stock market. But because it's riskier, the potential reward is higher too if it pans out. The challenge here, and this varies on a case-by-case basis, is what balance you want between sort of normal investing and reinvesting into your business. and it depends on your risk tolerance and your business's situation and your expectations of what your business will do in the future. So, just wanted to touch on that briefly, but you have that asset that most people don't have, your business. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this image that came to me. You hopefully recognize this: Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, a fantastic album, and also has the song Money on it. But I thought can be viewed as a metaphor for our relationship with money, where that initial beam of light coming in is our income, money flowing into us. We are that triangle or that prism, and when money flows in, it interacts with everything about who we are, our values and our purpose and what's important to us. And based on those things, it flows out as spending. And that spending is usually in these three areas: survival, fun, and kindness. Saving is money in a holding pattern where, based on our values, we might set it aside where it can grow or just stay safe. We will choose to start saving based on what's important to us. And then also, before we spend it, we will again have the opportunity to assess what's important to us. Maybe your goal has changed. Maybe you were saving for something and that's changed. But you have that opportunity to assess again before you spend what you've saved. Another thing with this image is that if you examine what you're spending on, that can tell you about what's important to you. Whether it's conscious or subconscious, it can reveal our values or our emotions and other things. So just a little bonus I thought I would leave you with. And the last thing I'll say about this little metaphor or image is that everyone is one of these prisms, and that the money that's flowing into our prism or into us is what's flowing out from other people, and vice versa. So you could picture a web or a net of these prisms with light or money flowing between them, and it's an image of our interconnection through money. My goal for this presentation was to give you some more philosophical attitudes and mindsets, but also some very practical things you can do to, for example, start to design your life, think consciously about what you want your impact to be, and also to start to save more. Please let me know in the comments if it's been valuable. I've given you the information here, but if you want someone to help you actually put it into action, go ahead and visit lovepeacemoney.com and you can get in touch with me there. This is what I do. This is what I help people with. We can set up a time to talk, no pressure, and just see if it might be a good fit for both of us. And whatever you decide is awesome. I want for you what you want for you, whether that includes me or not. So if there is a place for us to work together, that's great. But even if there's not, I hope you've gotten value from this presentation, and you can get even more value at lovepeacemoney.com. Happy saving, and I'm excited to see what impact you have and how you change the world.